I was going to ask you about other forms of parricide that are not literal murder.
Yeah.
The ways in which the children obli just completely obliterate the parents. We were talking about this not too long ago, and I think it's not unrelated. This trend of going quote unquote no contact. I have excised you from my life is a form of spiritual emotional murder.
There are many ways to kill your parents. Yeah.
Yes.
The stupid way is to kill them. I mean, physically. But there are many other ways to kill them. Parents describe excruciating pain when, for example, they are abandoned and rejected by their children, ignored by their children. There is reputational assassination, a reputational cost involved in raising children who later become your enemies. So there are many ways to kill the parent. And in today's world, there is no presumption of innocence when it comes to parents. Parents are automatically and immediately guilty
Yes.
until proven otherwise.
I
Rarely.
blame Oprah.
I blame Freud. I think
We
he's a
can
bit,
meet in the middle. I get you there. I
yeah, I
do.
think he's a bit older than Oprah, and so
I blame Oprah for the mainstreaming of it. More people, sadly, in today's world are familiar with the teachings of Oprah rather than the writings and works of Sigmund Freud.
right.
But I absolutely agree with you. Go on.
By the way, in the United Kingdom, we're talking the second class of killers. The first class
Yeah.
of killers, as I said, are people whose fantasy has taken over. They have a fantasy life which has taken over reality, and in this fantasy life, they are imprisoned and incarcerated and confined by monsters. And these monsters never let them become, never let them be happy, never let them
Yes.
realize and actualize themselves. So they have to kill these monsters. That's one group. The second group simply want money. They simply want the money because they feel they're entitled to it. They have grandiose conceptions and so on and so forth. And these people are mentally ill. They usually have personality disorders
Mhm.
and they abuse substances.
Mhm.
Now, shockingly, a court in the United Kingdom ruled that a personality disorder is a mitigating circumstance.
Oh.
There's a guy called Blackwell. He killed both his parents
Mhm.
cruelly,
Mhm.
as is the case usually.
Mhm.
And the judge said, well, he's mentally ill. He has narcissistic personality disorder. So
That's the concern that's vis-a-vis the Reiner case right now, that the mental illness aspect will overshadow everything.
the McNaughton rules, guilty by insanity, not guilty by virtue of insanity, as the McNaughton rules, are very clear. Can you tell the difference between right and wrong? All these people can tell the difference between right and wrong. They just
Yes.
don't care.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
there is an impulse you couldn't control. That's extremely
Hmm.
rare in parasite. It's usually not impulsive, actually. The perpetrator has been thinking about it for years sometimes,
Hmm.
imagining it, relishing it, you know, experiencing it vicariously via his or her imagination and so on. So
Probably coddling the fantasy because that the anticipation is probably as fun, if not more so, than the actual doing. And I don't mean that in a flip way, but I will not be surprised at all to learn that in this case that was an extremely sick house, that this was a problem that was known within the walls and the intimate family, external family members and friends, the satellites around it, and that this probably was something that he had been fantasizing about. Maybe we'll find his journals, maybe we'll find drawings. I don't know. We see it often with, it's another topic, but school shooters, same thing. They
so
fantasize in writings and drawings about it.
exactly, yes. It's not premeditated. It's not like you say on Thursday I'm going to kill my parents at
Right.
10:30 because I have an appointment at 12. But it's not this kind of premeditated, but it's definitely relished, anticipated, imagined and reimagined.
Mhm.
There is we call it vividness. There is kind of living and reliving the experience long before it had occurred. So I want to go back to the Grimm brothers story.
Yeah.
The mother's role is to be present for the child, to take care of the
Yes.
child's needs, shelter, food, and so on. And the father's role is to protect. Yet in Hansel and Gretel, the story, they both fail. the mother abandons the children, twice, by the way, not once. And the father is not there. He lives far away in a cabin, which is inaccessible. They have to ride the back of a duck to get there. And it's a talking duck. Don't ask. Horror. So what this story is telling us actually is that the expectations of the children are crucial when it comes to parasite. I insist that the children in the story do commit parasite. They committed by proxy. They killed the witch. But if you look at the witch, at the role of the witch in the story, she is a mother. She gives them shelter. She gives them food. She gives them a bed to sleep in. She is totally maternal. And then they kill her. And so I think it's like killing the parents by proxy, vicariously. You know? And why do they kill? Why is this parricidal instinct or drive in the story? Because the parents have failed them. The children perceive the parents as having failed them, having frustrated them and disappointed them, having not fulfilled the classical parental roles. This is the case with all parricidal killers. They perceive the parents as having failed them in some way. The psychopathic ones or the narcissistic ones, they say, the parents failed me, they didn't give me enough money. And the less pernicious ones, the less insidious ones, less evil ones, they say the parents have failed me because they wouldn't let me become. They wouldn't let me be me. They did not really love me. They loved maybe what I represented, or they loved what I could have become, or they loved what I should have become, but they never loved me. Now, back to the Reiners. The father didn't have to actually do anything. It's sufficient that he was successful and accomplished.
Yeah.
That in itself is a trigger.
That in itself, I think, is an act of aggression,
Yes.
Perceived aggression.
Yes. His very presence is a constant reminder of failure and inadequacy. His very success, his very accomplishments, the very fact that they had a circle of friends, while evidently Carl Reiner didn't. So the child, it grates, it's constantly grates. It's a process of friction. It's incremental, it's invisible, and yet the child is being corroded and eroded to the point that all the defenses crumble, all the inhibitions fall away, and the child honestly and truly believes that the only way to survive is to get rid of the parental figures. They have become what we call in psychology persecutory objects. They have become the enemy. And if parents don't know how to manage these situations, I don't think parasite is not that common, but the equivalent of parasite would be the disappearance of the child from your life. The vanishing of the child. The child will vanish simply one way or another.
Sam, unfortunately, I mean, I could talk to you about this for hours and hours, and I'm sure we'll revisit it as this story unfolds. But to that point, are there, you say so much of this is invisible, is unobservable, undetectable. Are there any signs? Is there any data that tells us what parents can look out for that might clue them into this kind of burgeoning rage within a child?
Substance abuse. Substance abuse is a great sign. Experimentation with identities, which is out of the normal. I'm not necessarily talking about gender dysphoria and transgender and so on, but
I was going to ask
when
you.
the child experiments with identities on a constant basis, this is a process known as moratorium. So it expands on a constant basis and seems to be unable to settle on a single identity. When the child rejects not the parental behavior, but the parents themselves, when the child defines itself, negative identity, defines itself in contradiction to the parents as mutually exclusive entities, have nothing to do with the parents, refuses. When the child becomes aggressive and violent out of context, and begins to develop hypervigilance, begins to interpret innocuous acts and innocuous utterances and words as insults or slights or threats or attacks. So there's a lot of this. When the child becomes entitled and makes unreasonable demands on the resources of the parent, could be money, could be time, could be energy, could be, drive me to school every morning, otherwise I won't go to school. Entitlement is a major warning sign. Interest in weapons, guns, and so on definitely is a warning sign. But I think if you really are looking for something that is unequivocal, unambiguous, and happens all the time, it's this discrepancy that I mentioned between the facade that the family puts outside, outwardly public facing, and what's really happening. The parents know this. They know that it's a facade. They know it's fake. The parents are aware that the image of the family, this curation, curation of the image of the family.
Now so prevalent with social media.
Yes, they know it's not true. Falsity, the major sign in my view, is falsity. When it's false, when it's fake, when it's pretend, when internally there's conflict and antagonism and resentment and frustration and hatred and aggression and fighting, and then when you go out, when the family goes out, it's all wine and roses. It's all wonderful, and there's a lot of love and compassion and empathy. Even the Reiners, and I'm not trying to say that I know anything about them beyond what I've read, but even the Reiners have presented what we call a pseudo-mutual facade. Like, look how much I love my son. Despite all his brokenness and his horrible, inexcusable behavior, look how much I'm giving him. Look how much I'm investing in him. Look how much, look. It's about the look. It's about attracting attention. It's about managing impressions. It's all artificial. It's all about appearances, not about substance.
Agreed. I think about this with there's a lot of talk about the film that Rob made with Nick, and it was called Being Charlie, and I believe it was co-written by Nick, and it was meant to try to usher Nick into Rob's world of successful filmmaking, successful artistic endeavor, but it was also about Nick's brokenness, Nick's addictions, Nick's inability to get his shit together. And then the two of them go on this media tour in which we see openly hostile emotions and statements and expressions coming from Nick. And, it's sort of treated like, how could this ingrate, be such a brat? And it's kind of like, well, if you were the broken one and your Oscar nominated father was making a movie about how fucked up you are, you might have some rage too. And I'm not blaming the victim in any way. I'm just saying this is a very, very nuanced situation. It's not the binary black and white that we're getting from the media. No,
it's not. And when you have the situation of a saint, a saintly father figure is a saint. I mean, to have suffered Nick, to have suffered his son for so long, that requires nothing short of sainthood. So he's a saint, and his son is the heretic. His son is it's a religious morality play, all good, all bad.
Yes.
It's a religious morality play, where Rob is in the role of the all good parent, and his son is in the role of the all bad, ungrateful, vicious, aggressive son. The thing is that throughout all this, there's still hope. Hope raises its ugly head, if you wish. And what I mean to say is the child still hopes. The child still hopes. The children still hope that they can gratify the parent. The child still hopes that he can somehow meet the parent's expectations. The child wants to fit in the parent's world. The child wants to emulate and imitate the parent. The child wants to become the parent. This is a process known as modeling. In parricide, modeling gets out of control. Whereas in normal, healthy families, if you ever come across, let me know, the modeling involves the emulation and imitation and adoption of highly functional behaviors of the parent. In this kind of families, Modeling involve the internalization of the duplicity.
Mm.
The modeling involves, I'm going to deny myself in order to make my father happy. I'm going to not be. There is a perception by the child that the expectation of the parent is for the child to not be, that the child is some kind of disappointment, some kind of an experiment gone awry, some kind of a bankruptcy, a lost endeavor, an enterprise. So the child says, the only way I can gratify my parent, the only way I can meet my parents' approval is by not being. And the child is hell-bent on denying itself, repressing itself, reshaping itself. Child becomes a shape-shifting thing. And in adolescence, this is exceedingly dangerous because anyhow, there is identity diffusion. At the moment of parasite, at the very second that the child engages in the act, there is dissociation. The person is no longer there, is absolutely not there. Something automatic takes over, a kind of animalistic survival instinct, a wish to get rid of this nagging, intrusive, overbearing, obfuscating and suffocating presence, which the parents have become. And the child is unable to face what he or she is doing, usually it's a he, and then the child dissociates completely. We know this from studies, we've spoken to these children afterwards, these killers, and they describe moments of oblivion, lost time, and then they wake up,
Do they remember, most of them, committing the crime, or is it a blackout state?
It's a kind of blackout state. At least that's what the majority of them claim. And we do know from similar situations, not involving parasite, but we know from traumatic situations that dissociation is very common. But I think the dissociation in this case is extremely likely because the child learns to adopt dissociation as a survival mechanism, as a coping strategy. The father broadcasts to the child, as you are not good enough. As you are, you're a failure. As you are, you're inadequate. As you are, you're ruining my life. That's a message. And so the child says, okay, Dad, I'm going to suspend myself. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to not be. And I'm going to become anything you want me to be, except myself. And so the child has huge experience with dissociation. Huge. Dissociation has become the main tool, actually. And of course, one way to accomplish dissociation is substance abuse. When you drink to excess, you dissociate. It's called blackout or brownout. Brownout is previous stage. When you do drugs, in some types of drugs, there is dissociation. So this is artificially induced dissociation, but the child also does it habitually, internally, generated from the inside. Dissociation becomes a defense. And then when the moment comes to get rid of the parents who are the source of the dissociation, that would be the ultimate and last dissociation, the last frontier, beyond which the child firmly believes that they're finally going to become. And that is why all of them say, I thought I would have a different life.
Wow. Wow.
I thought I would be different.
Today's show is sponsored by Cowboy Colostrum. Colostrum is the first milk that cow babies receive from their mothers after birth, and it's often called liquid gold because it is packed with proteins, natural growth factors, and antimicrobials, 3 things that can enhance your immune response and also reduce inflammation, repair and balance gut lining, and reduce bloating. It can even make your hair and skin look amazing. Cowboy Colostrum offers the highest quality cow colostrum in the US. They don't overprocess or strip their colostrum. They leave it whole with full fat and high protein for ultimate nutrient density. It's sourced from 100% grass-fed cows here in the US with all natural ingredients and no artificial flavors. You can add Cowboy Colostrum to your coffee or smoothie. It's simple and easy. You get this little frother with it and you just whip it up. The whole process is really satisfying. I love it. For a limited time, our listeners will get up to 25% off your entire order. Just head to cowboycolostrum.com/Maureen and use code Maureen at checkout. That's 25% off when you use code Maureen at cowboycolostrum.com/Maureen. And after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show. Tell them you're a troublemaker and the Nerve sent you.